found it, the soul of connection. If you're succeeding at everything except the relationships that matter most, this is for you. I'm Tressa Yonekawa, brain science, no fluff, real change.
All right, my friend, we're doing this thing. I'm so happy to have you here because you are such a dynamic person, being, I want to say, in how we do communication, in how we work together, in how coaching happens, and in all of the things that are important to me and you and so many people right now. So welcome, my friend Abizer Rasheed. And I'm curious if you can tell us how you describe yourself.
Tressa, thanks so much for having me on today. I am very honored to be here. Well, I am a relationship coach for executives and high net individuals. I think a lot of times what happens is that the formula that led me to success in my professional life potentially, right, doesn't necessarily map well to my personal relationships or even back to myself. So that's the place that I play in.
So how did you find that place to play in?
Because what made me successful didn't work in my personal relationships.
And so what made you successful?
There's this conversation that runs around that says I'm not good enough. And so everything has to be good enough. And so that is one way of achieving success. It's very painful and doable.
And I think it's fairly universal. And it's something that I've heard from my clients and I have worked through and continue to work through for the last 30 years of my career. Not always fabulous career, but always career. And the reason that it hasn't always been fabulous is exactly that place of, do I belong here? What am I doing here? But then also needing to show up as kind of bigger than life in order to build and lead and consult and do all those things. So what have you found works for that specific problem?
Well, the idea of I'm not good enough is just a way to protect myself, play it safe, stay in my comfort zone. And in perhaps some advanced conversation, it's based on my ego. And so when I can let go of that and actually, I spend, until I have this distinction, I spend much of my time thinking my ego is me. So, I think that's just how life occurs. So when I'm able to step outside of that and see that there's an actually authentic choice that I can make for myself as to what inspires me. My ego typically doesn't inspire me. It just protects me, right? So when I can find something that, a way of being potentially that inspires me, then I have a lot more, I can see a lot more. I see a lot more possibility, a lot more actions to take. So for example, I consistently have a choice of choosing I'm not good enough, or then choosing, love, care, compassion, because that's who I am on the planet naturally. Moment to moment, I'm a human being. I get to flip back and forth. I get to choose, right? And so that is the secret sauce.
That is the secret sauce. And it's so hard to choose or to learn how to choose because I was never given. Most of us, I'm going to say boldly and confidently, that most of us were never given role models or education that would encompass that choice of that. I think we all work from love, hopefully. Some of us work from the quest for wealth, for whatever that is. But when we make the choice to work from love, we can be anything. We can do that as a barista, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as anything. And the quality of life and work, I believe, from my experience, gets better. What do you think?
Yeah, well, talking about love, right? If you look at mom's cooking, right? Mom's cooking, it's the same recipe. Anybody else can make it. It's never the same because mom's love is mom's love, and it's right in the food that I'm eating, right?
Right. And I feel like you can tell when you are in a restaurant or when somebody is making the food with intention. with, that they love making food. I think there's a big difference, but it might just be me. And when you have applied this to relationships, what happened? Because you've been successful in business. What's happened in relationships when you've also applied this?
So when I'm not good enough, then any invalidation of my position is a problem because it just reinforces the fact that I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
So in most cases, I can never let. That's a funny way of saying it. However, let somebody else have their opinion and let them be okay with it is almost impossible.
Yeah.
Because it invalidates who I am. By my own choice, it invalidates who I am. And so it's difficult to be in a relationship with someone when that person has to always agree with me.
Right.
Because I know the right way. I know the right way.
Right. Yeah, that's a difficult relationship as a leader, and as somebody in a romantic relationship, for sure. And that is how I got into coaching high stress, high profile couples, was that I was working with really amazing leaders who started saying that the cognitive techniques that we were using in a corporation were working at home. And that was inspiring to me because I always want kids, especially, to have every opportunity to have the best life possible. And that comes from me from, the grown-ups in our lives as we were growing up did the best they could. I have to believe that. Did the best that they could in that moment. Were they seeking growth? Mine weren't, but hopefully others are. And as we move through, we develop stories and patterns around those stories, is my concept. And when we have those patterns around those patterns are very protective of the original story that might be wrong, oftentimes is wrong. And it's oftentimes based on self-worth. When you find that your client is working with self-worth, what is the first thing that you do?
We explore how they're validating themselves. How do they know they have self-worth or they don't? And then we unpack that further to appreciate if that is the most helpful way or not.
Yeah.
Is that really the way these are choices that our coachees make, right? We don't make choices for our coachees. So it's a matter of unpacking what's actually, all we're looking at is the top of the iceberg. What's underneath the water, right? Let's look at that and let's inspect it and see if we're really aligned with that.
Yeah.
If we are, okay, we are. However, if we're looking to make a shift, maybe there's another alternative to look at. So it's about getting to the core of the issue. It's not just a topical, top 10 list of, do these 10 things and life will be grand. It typically doesn't work that way. Because if I'm not supposed to say that word and I memorize not to say that word, I will find 10 other words to say the exact same thing. And I won't know the difference.
Absolutely. I think our cognition tries to fiercely protect. And, we talk about it as ego also, so we can use the term ego as well. But our ego, our cognition, seeks to fiercely protect what is known, because what is known is safe. So when we move out of the realm of what is known to what feels less safe to our brains, then our brains want to say, wait a minute, nope, you're not gonna be okay there. And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck. Like when we talk about bottlenecks, I think that's where it happens. So can you give me an example of a prompt or something that you would ask one of your coachees that would make them or us have to respond in a way that requires growth? Like, what are we looking at? What are we looking at?
Well, one of the best questions is, what's your role in that?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I'm too busy. I like everything falls on me. I'm frustrated by people not delivering. Like we're not creating the things we're supposed to create. And then your question is, what is your role in that? Yeah. That's a good one. That's great. I had a mentor who was a psychologist a long time ago, I think in college. And I was complaining because I had no time. Like, in air quotes, I have no time. I can't get anything done. And he just very calmly said, in his, sport coat with like elbow patches on it, said, well, who creates your schedule? Who, and I went, oh, right. How very uncomfortable. But I think, as we are coaching, as we are consulting, as we are doing the things to help companies, teams, individuals, couples grow and expand beyond where they are to be fully living, fully successful, the first thing that we have to do is determine what is success. What is success here at work? What is success in our relationship? And I think that's something that very few people do, other than the projections for Q1 through 4. Do you find that?
I mean, I think but there's more to that story, right? I mean, if I am validating my whole identity around success or no success as I define it, I mean, then that's another place to look. Right? If I don't hit that goal, if I don't hit that marker this quarter, this month, today, whatever, this hour, whatever I set it to, then am I worthless all of a sudden, right? Did I fail with a capital F? I mean, there's so many places people go when they collapse success with identity. That's another place that we unpack and look at.
Yeah, but that's what we learned is the right thing to do. Like all social media, everything points to that. So how are we supposed to know that success and identity are not bundled together?
They get to call Tressa.
Well, I mean, but if they're not doing that, if they're not calling one of us, what's the determiner? How can they know? What's the question that we can ask? And I'm asking myself this too. What's the one question that we can ask that helps people understand that they can unpack those things and they can determine that for themselves?
So I don't know if there's an exact question for that. Usually in when I'm talking to someone, it's a series of steps leading to an uncollapse. So basically I've collapsed identity with some kind of external factor, right? Success. I passed that person in the hall, they didn't wave at me, something must be wrong, whatever, right? I mean, there's so many places we go as human beings, you and I included, right? So I think it's a series of steps, but I think when I can find a collapse, right? Like I've made an assumption that my identity is tied to my success, right? Now, there is something about giving my word to completing something by a certain time and completing it by then, right? There's a lot of momentum, a lot of stuff. And the exact truth is true of the opposite. If I continue to give my word to something and something else, and then a third thing, and I don't complete on those things, that's also momentum in a different direction. And that's potentially death by 1,000 cuts, because my word is the only thing I have. And I've continued to just, destroy it at time after time. And by not giving it any weight, any credence, because I keep breaking my word. So that is different than associating, shame, guilt, anything else associated with the fact that I didn't keep my word. There's just that I didn't keep my word. There isn't this whole drama circle around why didn't I keep my word and what happened and all of those things that we do as human beings,
especially to ourselves. I think when we don't keep our word to ourselves, there should be like a little alarm that goes off, and when we do, confetti should fall from the ceiling, right? So I think we don't honor that enough, and yet we still beat ourselves up for it. I know I do. So in my ADHD world, I have 175 things. I have 75 tabs open right now. Like there's so many things that I want to do that get partially done, and then I really have to focus to do the thing. But it definitely can undermine my efforts when I think, oh, I'm never going to, or I can't, or I never. And those are all subconscious, mostly things. So making the subconscious conscious is the work that I think you and I both do, which is one of the reasons why I love talking with you. And the efforting has to be, you put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
So when you're talking with someone who is who has a family, who has a spouse, who runs a team, who runs a company. What is important for them to do every day?
Well, for example, I'm love, care, compassion. So I will, it's almost like a mantra. I will say that before I enter a conversation. I'll, say it randomly throughout the day, just to presence that way of being. So I'm aware of it. And at some point it becomes a natural state, right? If we kind of look at a fork in the road, one path is just, the ruts are deep. I can take that road, but then my eyes shut and I know exactly how many steps to the left, how many to the right. I can just follow that, right? Mindlessly. And so the other path is a little bit overgrown, right? There's some grass there. There's, the ruts aren't as deep. So it's a little uncomfortable. So I almost have to consciously make the choice to go down this path. Love, care, compassion, for example, in my case, right? And then at some point I take that road often enough where the other road, the other choice gets all grown over and the ruts aren't as deep. And I just naturally follow this path.
I love
And
that.
if I'm working to a bigger vision, then taking that path becomes much easier.
And what's the
Right?
phrase you love?
Love,
Honor,
care, compassion.
love, care, compassion. Love, care, compassion. I love that because that is intention setting. That is presence. That is resetting when you start a conversation or enter a room or something, and you're becoming very present with that. And then hopefully what's supposed to happen, and what I'm guessing happens, and I know it happens from talking with you, is that everything you say goes through that lens and everything you hear comes through that lens. Can you, here in the middle, tell us how to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at abizerrasheed.com. It's just my first name, last name.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can find me there as well.
Thank you. So as you enter and bring the tone and bring the presence intention of that into everything you do, what have you found changes? Because I'm guessing you haven't always done that, or have you always done that since you were a kid?
No, if I'm not in that space, then I'm in this, typically I'm in the space of I'm not good enough, and everything goes through that sieve.
Human, you're in the human space.
Well, we're all here. The whole thing is human. It's just a matter of, where and what part of it am I playing in, right? What am I choosing to do at the moment? So finally, it comes back down to choice, right? Choice is the ultimate. I think it separates us from all of other creation. It's choice, right? So am I going to choose to be, and if I'm being not good enough, then everything is most things are personal at that point. So it's hard to be in a conversation where everything is personal.
Say more about that distinction.
So if I'm talking to somebody and they don't agree with me, right? If I'm love, care, compassion, I can choose to disagree without being disagreeable because my foundation is love, care, compassion. If my foundation is I'm not good enough, it's really hard for me to disagree without being disagreeable.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think, and having talked with you before this and today, one of the things that I'm impressed by and really love and honor about you is that you bring great intention to everything you do, which brings great intention to your coachees, which allows us to live and work and connect with more. And that's the whole point, is living beyond just what I call the beige or the socio-normative or the lowered expectations, and lets us look at expanding and understand how to do it. And it can happen from just that intention at the outset. And then we drill in, right? So we have this general intention and everybody gets to set their own. And then we drill down into, what would you say are the top aspects we need to look at, the top things that we need to see in order to expand how we're working and how we're connecting?
I think the biggest thing is results, right? So if I'm coming from I'm not good enough, then the results don't pan out I'm talking about just being a victim in the conversation. I've had to help that person and they just wouldn't accept my help.
Mm.
They just don't get it, right? They're all upset and they don't get that I was just trying to help them, right? Whatever. And I'm the martyr, the victim, whatever, right? So if I'm relating to the result that way, I can quite quickly tell where I'm coming from. And if I'm coming from the approach of, yeah, that didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to, a person's not happy, right? And I can accept that they're not happy without making it personal to myself, right? And I can look at the other side of the conversation, which is, okay, what actually did I need to do next time? What good do I get to do next time to make sure that I can reach that goal, right? It's more of a lessons learned conversation than it is a, beat myself up or be a victim or find some other, momentarily, for some small moment in time, have a small victory, even though long term I'm paying the price.
Long term, we pay the price. I think that's huge. And time goes by so fast. I think no matter how much time we get, it's never seems to be enough in most cases. And so, can you give me an example of what it looks like to go from day one to day 100 with you? What's the outcome? What happens?
So, one of my coaches swore up and down that her husband was having an affair with her, with some lady, right? Lady was, in her probably about my age or so. And this woman that she thought was involved in this was like half her age. And I'm here on this end. I don't know what's happening, and I can't validate one way or the other. That's not even my place to do that, right? We went through a process, and at the end, she called herself the silver-haired foxy lady. That was a new name, right? And her husband was not having an affair, right? As she came to terms with on her own, as she had some conversations, and as she elevated herself to a higher frequency, right? Chose who she was going to be. She was able to actually see what was happening. And one of the things she said was, I'm actually pushing him into having an affair. He's not having one. I'm pushing him into have one, right? And so the wins at the end of this engagement was that, first of all, the lady that she thought was having the affair with her husband and herself became really good friends. And she sent me a picture later where, it's just her and her husband. And her husband is actually leaning into her in the photo, right? Which, and this, maybe I don't know if I can come across in words or not, but the photo itself is just, it speaks wonders to where she was before and where she is now, where her husband is actually leaning into her.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of success that I'm sure that your clients have, those that are committed to the coaching process and are willing to do what it takes to get what they want. Right?
Yeah, I think, my clients typically find me, and tell me if it's similar for you. My clients tend to find me last. I'm not the first choice. They'll do therapy, they'll do other consulting, they'll do all the things like big box consulting, all the things. They tend to find me last, which is totally okay with me, because then I know that they realize that what they're doing is worth saving if they can. So I'm like, okay, last hope kind of thing. So I like that positioning for me because all possibility exists there. How about you? When do people find you? When should they find you?
It's mostly through referrals. And I think a lot of people have a sense that something isn't quite right. And, as a human being, many times I just poo-poo that for a while. Somewhere in that poo-poo process, at some point we should, we get to stop and actually start addressing it before all the wheels come off, right? So I think right before, earlier the better, because there's less stuff to be done. And, sometimes at the end even, because at that point we've all got skin knees and we've all tried everything and we're just exhausted. And so it's not in that part of the conversation, if there's commitment to, like you said, there's commitment to actually save or develop or grow this relationship, then people are most willing to do almost anything to save it, which is also a great thing because there's a lot of motivation to do what there needs to be done.
Yeah,
instead of
exactly.
just, I'm not going to do that. Right. Okay. Well, then why'd you hire me?
Yeah, or let's.
I see what you're saying, and I'm not going to do that. Well, we had an agreement to be coachable, right? And you actually see what there is to be done. So instead of arguing with me about whether you're going to do it or not, let's actually have a conversation around what's getting in the way of you not being able to have that conversation. Let's
Yeah.
unpack that. So when you do have the conversation, it's 100% authentic and from your heart, and not just some couch job, some words you had to say, so you said them.
Right. That can happen too. I always like, from when I keynote or in my consulting and my coaching, I really am devoted to not making people, but offering people the opportunity to have the interactive experience right away. So when we have the interactive experience, within the first, for me, in my first coaching session, within the first few minutes, I'll have people turn toward each other, and just take a few deep breaths and just be present with each other. And I would say that most people, I would say 98%, and that's a made up figure, but that's anecdotal, like based on what I'm recalling from past sessions. Most people have never taken time to do that with their person. Just be present. And it's awkward and uncomfortable because they've never just faced each other in silence and taken a few breaths together. And it can be so powerful. What is a tool? And it's surprising, but it's not, because I lived that life where it's like, hey, good morning, love you, bye. Hey, go, you're home, great. Get the table set. Let's get the kids there. Blah, 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 love you, good night. So what is one thing that, like that, for you, that you have people do engage in, like ponder, that makes a difference?
So I will, we'll get to the base of like my, we work on the distinction between, if in my case, not good enough, identifying what that is for them.
Yeah.
And then really looking at moments when, life was colorful and there were fireworks and, life was off the charts, and what that experience was like for them. And then we look at the two and we look to see what the gap is between here and there.
Yeah.
And we work on that.
Yeah, and that's such a fast, easy win. And that when we create that melancholy, when we look back, our brain creates bond, right? So when we look back in melancholy that we did this and this was a good period of time, our brain is like, oh, and yeah, we did that. And so that is like, that's almost team building right there. Remember when we had that win, is basically what we're saying. And we're like, yes, we had that win. We're capable of having those wins. And that brings everybody into literally a frame of mind where it's like, oh, we had that. So now we have the data point that we can have that again. So I love
even
that.
better. Not even again, but better.
Yeah. Better,
right?
always better.
Let's create it even to the next level.
Yeah.
Because anything is possible.
I love that. I always say if two people will come to the table, we can get with wanting change, we can get change. Every time. Tell us again how we can find you, because you are someone that needs to be found.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. You can find me on my website, which is my first name, last name, abizerrasheed.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook.
And Abizer, what is one thing that if you were no longer on this planet in 10 minutes from now, what in your voice, in your words, would you want to carry on through the rest of time?
It's clichéic in some ways. Love conquers all. And it really does, because if one side stops pushing, the other side, it's just physics. The other side either has to stop pushing or fall over. And I think, based in a foundation of humility, I think love conquers all. After that, it's just a choice. One of my fellow coaches that I partnered with on other projects, she had to she was thrown out of her house at 17, beat up pretty badly on the way out, lived in a subway for 6 months, and then she got married, had kids, did all that. And she made the choice that she wanted her kids to know her grandparents.
Mm.
So without needing an apology, without needing anything, she goes and visits them once or twice a year with the kids, and the full family goes. And they spend that time because she wants her kids to know her grandparents. No apology needed, no talking about the past, and none of this personal stuff that that she's just gotten over, because the choice to have her kids know her grandparents was so important.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So
hugely mature.
So when I'm in love, care, compassion, those kind of choices are easy to make, but I'm purely in that state.
I agree. I love, care, compassion. I use what do I need to do in the highest good of all involved? So, and
Yeah.
I love, care, compassion is very clear. I love that so much. Abizer, it is always and forever will be a pleasure knowing you and talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing some of your ethos and your methodology here with us today, and how people can grow beyond, can do better, can be what they want to be in life and in love. I appreciate you so much, and I hope you'll come back again.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to. Tressa, thanks so much for having me on. We just got, our first call was just like, like you're a sister from another mother. It was a great conversation. Even this conversation was very, very, very spectacular and very connected. So I really appreciate being here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. AbizerRasheed.com. Everybody, please find him. And thank you so much for being here.
You dove in. This is the Soul of Connection. Subscribe now. Stay close. Your full life depends on it.